Guys, we have a special video today. I'm here with Parvision, Artur, and Joyboy Theories. I felt like it was appropriate based on the chapter that we recently had. I'd say for me, one of the more just interesting cliffhangers in the community. Obviously, it was they responded just based on just how crazy everyone was going. I guess I'll just start off by asking you guys. First, how are you guys doing? You guys good?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. But let me just ask you guys, because today we want to focus on like 1044 and what's going to happen. But of course, we can talk about 1043, obviously. I guess I'll start with you, JB. What are your thoughts, man? How did you feel after reading that chapter?
Man, this is tough, because I expected something about Joyboy in this arc, but actually getting something, it's so surreal. And I'm like partly prepared for it, partly not. I start to sense the end of One Piece, which is, crazy in and of itself. And it's like the reveal doesn't reveal everything. It adds as many more questions as it might resolve. It's another puzzle piece, right? And so that's overwhelming in another sense. But I guess my overall feeling after the chapter was just like, whoa, we're here. Yeah. And then on top of that, it's still exciting though, because, this is just the honest truth, man. Like, I don't want to get to the end. Like, I might say that, like, I want to know the answers to the mysteries, but I love the journey so much. So, it's...
No, that's part of it. It's like, it's when you're watching a good movie, right? And you're enjoying it so much, but then you're like, I want to know how it concludes, but I don't want to get to the end at the same time. So I'm just like enjoying the ride as much as possible. And this chapter, it was a lot of that. Artur, how did you feel about it?
Okay, so this may be a bit of a hot take, though I don't think it may necessarily be, because I've seen a lot of other people sharing onto it as well. But
I think I saw your tweet about it.
I am very excited by this. I feel like a Luffy power-up cliffhanger is always an exciting moment. And, like the whole confirmation of Joyboy is also kind of exciting as well. But at the same time, I feel that neither of these twists were really anything that we didn't already expect. I don't think there were many people in the community that didn't think that Luffy was going to be Joyboy, and I especially don't think there were many people in the community who weren't going to think that Luffy was going to awaken or develop a new power-up. Right. And I think that Oda developed it in a very smart way, because if Oda had simply had like Luffy awakening at the end, it would have been exciting, but it would have been really obvious. So instead, he also added the Joyboy like reveal on top, so that both complement each other. So despite being very obvious, the fact that they're together, they become even more hype than they would have been individually. So in that regard, like, I am very, very excited, but like, it is also something that I was kind of expecting. And for as exciting as these kind of like before power-up chapters are, kind of like, the same thing as Dressrosa when Luffy went Gear 4th, or Snake Man against Katakuri, it is exciting, but it's more like the weight of those 2 weeks to really see that power-up in action next week. And that's like what I'm really excited to see more than anything.
Well, it's not just like what happens, it's also the way that it happens. When we get Gear 4th, it's like I'm mentally prepared for what to expect. I know what is going on.
Did you know what Gear 4th was going to be? Like, we didn't know how it was going to work.
We didn't know exactly.
You could argue that we have a clearer clue on how Awakening works just from like that like resin blob thing than what we did with Gear 4th, where we went in completely blind. So.
But this is like
a different feeling.
I don't know what to expect here.
Yeah, I lived through Gear 4th, and that was I like that a lot. Like, but in terms of after that chapter, I didn't feel like I don't know what's going on. And like I do know, like, you can break it down into simple terms, like, okay, we have an awakening and we have Luffy as the reveal of Joyboy, but the answer that Oda's going to give us to how all these things connect leaves me feeling like there's still things I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but like, I don't know. It's just, I don't see, like, I think it's going to be relatively straightforward in a sense that we are that we already kind of have an idea of how that awakening could be, but we really need to see it in action to really see how Luffy sort of wields this power in a sense.
So I have a question for you. So do you separate the two reveals out? Do you not combine them? So you think it's a Joyboy reveal and an awakening, but the two things aren't related, or do you like?
I think there's like a bit of a connection. I think that it's either, on one hand, it's simply on one hand, it's either simply that Zunisha acknowledges Luffy as Joyboy because it sees something within Luffy, but I do think it could also be the awakening of the Devil Fruit itself, and that gets in a bit Dodger territory because it does kind of get into the whole thing like, is the Devil Fruit kind of predestined? Like, was Luffy fated to eat the Devil Fruit and whatever? But the fact that I feel there's a bit of an implication that the fruit the Gorosei were talking about was the Gomu Gomu no Mi, because they said this is a fruit that hasn't awakened in centuries, potentially since the Void Century, and the fact that Luffy awakened it and Zunisha recognized, that kid, he's like the new Joy Boy because like he's capable of pulling this off, something that maybe someone else couldn't have, But I think it's gonna be something like that. But like I think the point I'm trying to say is that like I don't think the next chapter we're gonna get a full explanation of what it is to be the Joy Boy or something like that. I think we're gonna see Luffy awakened and stuff like that, and the Joy Boy tease is just gonna be elaborated upon in the future. As cool as it would be, I just don't see that happening immediately.
Because I want to get Parvision in here.
I was gonna say that I think among all four of us, I'm the newer manga reader, so this is actually like I started around chapter 1000. So,
oh wow,
and so then when I did that, I read back everything, and then that's kind of where like I had all these theories. I've been watching ever since I was a kid. And so that's where like my channel started coming up because I recently reviewed like all of the arcs and everything like that, right? So I haven't experienced anything like that, but from this perspective, it feels like 1043 was like kind of the craziest chapter to release. And the reason why I feel like that is because it's like what Artur was saying about like, we kind of expected this. This is kind of like something that was always going to happen. But what JB was saying, it's like how it happened, right? It's the fact that Zunisha came here and told us that he's Joy Boy. That's crazy. The setup with the Gorosei, like all these different moving parts coming and colliding and connecting together. I feel like all of those things that, was once separate now coming together makes this so much more meaningful. And I didn't exactly expect us to find out about this Joy Boy thing the way we did, and we got it here. And even the chapter name, like Let's Face Death Together, like there's so many concepts around death that were just floating around Onigashima. We were wondering who's gonna die, when are they gonna die, all that stuff, and then it's like then it's like Luffy's gonna die, it's kind of crazy. I feel like all those, I think that's like where Oda is like really crazy for this, is like he made all these moving parts come together and move together to this reveal. And it's just even crazier because there's so many more reveals in the future, like Shanks and Vegapunk and like
Blackbeard's back.
There's so many more, and this is how he did it for Joy Boy. So it's like, how exciting are the next reveals gonna be, right? Like, bro, that's kind of like my perspective.
It's like it's like a tangled knot, right? And there's so many of them coming together, and you're trying to figure out how to unwind it all. It's like, well, Oden knew something about what would happen. Kaido clearly knows something.
Has some
what
idea.
do they know, and how does it play in with the current events? You have a Devil Fruit Awakening. Does it relate to Joy Boy? Does Luffy being near death relate to Joy Boy? There's so much, and some of this might be noise, right? Like, it doesn't actually relate, but how the hell do we know that, So the actual potential, the potential, or the hypothetical potential of this in terms of craziness is just, it's
absurd, right? Because I think, like, just all you guys' perspective, I agree with to an extent, right? Because Artur, I agree that this is something we expected, right? With Luffy going against the final villain, the final fight, he's gonna unlock something new, okay? And so even the chapters before that, it was saying, this is my last Gear 4th. This is all I got left. I was like, right? Like, this is just telling us that's not all he has, especially
if he uses a power that is in Gear 4th, he's not lying technically.
But right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It was very careful dialogue there, But then after what happened with Law in the previous chapters was like, hey man, this is Awakening. After that, the Law used like Kroom like 3 more times. It's like, okay, I don't believe this is it for Luffy. But like JB was saying with the Tangled Knot, it's like, all right, with Luffy here, Zunisha saying he's Joy Boy. The reincarnation stuff comes up, right? You think obviously of an inherited will, the will of D, but then you think of, okay, what are the ramifications of this? How much does Luffy know based on this? I expected Joy Boy to be revealed in this arc in some way, right? But if we go off of Odin's words, right, where Odin was like, we want to prepare and open up the borders for when Joy Boy returns. I'm expecting this to happen probably after Kaido in some weird way. Right?
I don't agree with that because I've always assumed Luffy is Joy Boy. And simply, the only thing that Odin really knew was that Joy Boy would one day come to Wano, and that's why Odin wanted to open the borders. But in a sense, Luffy came to Wano, and he is the one who helped open the borders by sort of following what the Scabbards did. But, so I don't think, like, at least to me, it didn't kind of give the idea that, like, Joy Boy would be presented after the borders of Wano are open, because Joy Boy is already here. And the thing is, like, yes, Zunisha is telling us that, like, yeah, Luffy is the Joy Boy and everything, but it's like, Luffy has kind of always been the Joy Boy here, even across the entire series. I mean, since chapter 1, why did Shanks place his bets on Luffy? Because he saw in Luffy that this kid could become the one that Roger was waiting for.
I think it's maybe more than that, though.
Wait, hold on, Brago. Maybe because he ate the Gomu Gomu to me. I think I'm starting to see where my opinion kind of like differs from yours just a little bit. Where like I see a little bit more possibility. Maybe is when you come into Odin's dialogue, like we got to prepare for the day that Joy Boy appears. We got to open the borders for that to happen. Well, it doesn't seem like the borders are open yet, which creates this impression that Joy Boy might appear at the end. But you're kind of I feel like you're kind of locked into this assumption that Luffy is Joy Boy, and that definitely could be true. But it's like there's like, well, what if, and my theory is currently, or it's like, what if Joy Boy is the devil inside of the devil fruit, the spirit that inhabits it, placed there in some way? You can say, well, that's that's like a crazy headcanon, but I'm just saying that something like that is it adds another level of like, well, wait, it's like it may not be there's more than one possibility.
Yeah, I'm on JB's.
It may not be as straightforward as Arthur is saying.
But like I still think regardless. Sorry, I think regardless that the one who is Joy Boy, or at least like will definitively come the Joy Boy, is Luffy, and I think that's just kind of sort of how the story is going. Like I know Oda could pull a twist, and maybe it's like Momo or it's like Blackbeard or whatever, but I think it's just ultimately it is going to be Luffy. And just to add, we do know there's this concept of sort of that there are Joy Boy candidates, like Kaido wanted or thought he could become Joy Boy at one point, but failed to do so. But Luffy is the one who is managing to do it, and I think he's ultimately the one who will succeed in becoming the Pirate King and using the One Piece, which I feel like that's like kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's not confirmed, but of course Luffy's going to be the one to find the One Piece, right? It's kind of the point of the series.
Yeah, well, Parvision, I want you to get in here. What were you
I was gonna say that I was
gonna find the One Piece
with Joy Boy with Joy Boy's point about Joy Boy being. I'm on the ship that I feel like Joy Boy is more related to the fruit rather than something else, rather than like destiny. I think it's tied to the fruit, and so many of the like dialogues especially in Onogashima have made it feel like that, with like the Gorosei talking about a specific fruit, but then even more like when Kaido knocked Luffy off the island, he even like mocked he's like, Gomu Gomu what? Like, you know what I mean? So it kind of feels like, oh, is it not the Gomu Gomu? And then something that I was thinking about, and I don't have a locked in theory on this one, though I do have one about what the fruit's name would be, but an idea about the whole Joy Boy thing was like, yeah, Kaido could be a candidate for Joy Boy, and there might be other candidates for it. And something that someone brought up, I think on my stream, was that it might be a possibility that if you have a devil fruit, you might have to fulfill certain conditions, and then you might become Joy Boy or gain the title, and it's tied to devil fruits in general, not just one devil fruit. So I was just thinking that's an interesting way to think about it too. If you think about if devil fruits are like connected beyond just like, you know, they came from the same tree or something, or they came from the same source, or they came from, you know, the same point in time. It might be that the originator of devil fruits might be connected rather than just it being Luffy's fruit, and Luffy just might be the one person that made all the conditions connect, you know. You know, that was just an interesting thought, but I am also on the side that it is more tied to the fruit rather than like anything else.
Yeah, I love that theory. The theory that, like, you know, like I like to think about Doflamingo. Doflamingo has a string fruit, one of the few that we know that have awakened. But he embodies that fruit. It's perfect for him, and that's true generally across the board. And you could say, well, that's just happenstance, that's just chance, that's a fate or whatever.
Possibly.
But you know, it's like
the only thing I wanted to mention is that didn't the Gorosei say that it was like one specific fruit that hasn't awakened?
Well, they were talking about one fruit that concerned them, but that doesn't mean that some concept of devil fruits can't tie universe. Oh, it could be. It could be. I'm not. You know, like we're just talking about basically like awakening being something that connects the fruit to the people that use them in some sort of interesting way. User.
But in this instance, it's Joyboy, so that's why it's
right. Joyboy is like the theory is Joyboy is the Gomu Gomu no Mi or related to it specifically. But then the concept of like an actual spirit of somebody who once lived being inside devil fruits is something common. And even if you don't want to take
we've explored before,
right?
You know?
And even if you don't want to take it that specifically, it's just really interesting. You know, and I personally like this how you could take a fruit and to reach the maximum capabilities of it, you have to represent it perfectly.
You have to embody those maybe character traits, personality traits. Yeah. But something that I was thinking about, I was just randomly thinking about, I was like, I don't want to go this far as like Digimon forever, like the Digi-Destined, like they had to go like the Crest of Courage or whatever.
Hey, but like that reference.
Right? But certain like devil fruits, like what if it's like fate, right? Or destiny, that it has to go to this specific person based on how this person is, because like JB was saying, for the personalities and how they match up with the devil fruits, it's almost always perfect, right? And again, it could just be something where it's like Oda has the personalities match the devil fruit,
well,
but it's
like
like
not
it
both?
Could be a situation where, right, where it's like, or do you take on the qualities of the previous user or the devil fruit after you get the fruit,
right? Well,
a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, from a writing standpoint, right, it makes sense. Okay, let's create a devil fruit. Let's have the person represent them, right? But then, as you're writing the story with this thing that just clean and it works, then you add a reason behind the scenes so that
you add more layers to it.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, that just makes a lot of sense to me.
The other thing that we don't really know either is it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, because we don't know some of these characters getting their powers what they were like before, and a lot of the times we see these characters well after they've already developed their powers and got to know their powers. So we don't know how the devil fruits may or may not affect their personality. I think the only person really we'd find that out from would be Sabo, but we also don't know. Like, yeah, we know what he was like as a kid, but as an adult, he was very limited. So then
that's the tough part with it.
Yeah, so like, Ace was very like he's confrontational, right? And maybe we'll start seeing Sabo.
Hot-head.
Yeah,
hot-headed.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like, was Sabo always like that? I don't think he was as hot-headed as Ace.
He
but
was
like,
not as hot-headed
right.
as Ace, but he felt a bit more fiery in Dressrosa.
And even at Reverie,
it's
right?
Hard, it's hard to really separate what really is just the narrative at work. And it's just Oda making these characters fit, and what really is like canonical. And I feel like that's always a hard line to cross.
Absolutely.
And
but that's what makes it interesting, I think.
I just want to throw out
you're going back and forth.
The entities being in the devil fruit, like that is a thought that I think a lot of people had, and also like Oda has been like, it was a rumor back in Eni's lobby, and then here and there is thrown out there. But recently I just kind of like went over this chapter, and Caribou is a really interesting character to just kind of like think about, because he has so many different connections. But on chapter 1021, he specifically refers to his devil fruit as a she. He says, "My swamp song power is bottomless. She's a hungry gal." And I was just thinking like,
Artur's like official translation. No.
Yeah.
I have to check it, but
yeah. So I mean, I welcome. I like that. I asked on Twitter. I was like, I need to see like the raw scans. I've been trying to follow everybody who's like has like the Japanese like translations going on and to like nitpick on those things. So this is really important. So if you tell me otherwise, shoot me a DM on Twitter or whatever. Like, for sure would want to know. But that's chapter 1021, second to last page.
I think pronouns are kind of difficult in general to translate. Correct me if I'm wrong, Artur.
Yeah, it's really complicated because Japanese doesn't have third-person pronouns, but no, I'm trying to check the original file right now.
He's trying to pull up right now. I guess in the meantime, like Artur mentioned something about Shanks and the reason why he did things.
Oh,
and you guys start to feel a bit more.
Okay, it's not gendered. Sorry.
It's not gendered. So he says she's a hungry gal. So like that was what it
says. Sokonashi-san, which means someone who is bottomless. It's basically a person with a bottomless stomach, but it is
okay. But so it's still referring to an entity, right? Like it's whether it's he or she.
They've done that throughout the story.
My Numa Numana power is like a bottomless person, like a person with a bottomless stomach.
But you know, either way, gendered or not, I mean, we saw Lucci or in Eni's lobby talk about the devil fruits as a kind of entity, and I'm sure that there's many other examples that you could find throughout the story. So there's definitely some ground to.
I mean, like I think that Buggy and Shanks talked about that in the Buggy flashback at the very start of the series. How like the fruits are supposedly like the incarnation of the sea devil or something like that, and obviously that's just a myth within the story of One Piece, but like still there's
a truth to every like rumor in One Piece.
Right. I think this one is I think in term like the Lucci one I don't exactly remember, because I remember usually it's like people referring to it as rumors or like myths or I heard of this, whereas this example is like specifically a devil fruit user talking about their own devil fruit.
Jabra.
Okay. Yeah, Jabra. Okay, so I think it was before the Kaku and Khalifa ate the fruit.
Talking about this.
Yeah. So, but and whereas this example, it's like, first of all, Caribou being an Onigashima is just weird. Like, why? Like, to me, it's like Oda's putting him there to give specific dialogue to like it's meaningful. It has to be. Why else is this character here? And so when I read that, I was like, wait a second.
It has to be significant for we've been talking about that for a while.
Years.
After Caribou overheard Robin and King Neptune's conversation, like, okay, what is gonna come of this? Is he gonna snitch to Kaido, Big Mom? Is he gonna try to latch himself onto somebody else? Yeah. Use his information. So that still could happen.
No,
because
I think
he's been missing.
But it's just a question of who.
Who does he do?
Right.
Who does he give this information to?
I was just going to say, this is not like 100%, I don't stand by this, but like one of the thoughts that I had when I saw the last panel on 1043 was like, this melting thing, it kind of looks like Caribou's powers.
It looks like Caribou. Yeah.
It looks like Caribou's.
People have been saying
no.
People say, yo, what? It'd be so disappointing.
Caribou
if
awakened.
Caribou.
Yeah.
That'd be Oda's trolling us though. Like he's known to troll us, right? So
yeah.
But I don't want him to troll us like that.
Artur though. I wanted to ask Artur this because the people, I guess a misconception right now in the community is about devil fruits, and once you eat them, right, the power that you gain, because in the official translations people go back to the chapter with Rob Lucci and when they eat their fruits, the dialogue basically says, I guess once you eat your fruit, you learn the name of the fruit, and it basically like tells you what it is, right?
Yeah.
But I think someone went back and looked at Stephen's translations, and they were completely different, and it kind of debunked that. So I don't know if you've ever gone back and looked at that chapter.
I do remember a lot of people sort of debated that point, and I do think I checked it a long while ago, but I don't remember specifically. I think I can add to this. I can add to this. There was a Reddit theory that I saw recently. And I can link you, Artur, if you want to verify how he read it. But I read the comments, and there was nobody that was like, I'm an official translator, and this is BS. But, basically said that it's the English translation, and this was just true in general for the English Viz translation before Stephen went on board. The original one was not the best, like Elbaf.
Right.
But So, the point is that it more so implies that you don't know the official name of your fruit when you eat it. You can discover the fruit's name by using it. And so this is interesting with like the Book of Devil Fruits and previous users as well.
If I recall, that's what it was. That's not like you get like the name zero marked in your mind, but it's more like you kind of get.
Yeah, basically you demonstrate
get it based
the
on
power.
the abilities, right?
I'd have to check it to be sure, but that's kind of what I recall from like the time that I checked it.
I'm trying to remember that chapter, but in the official translations, it implied like it just zooms into your mind.
Yeah, I can
like
send
as soon as you eat it. Yeah, as soon as you eat it, it's like, oh shit, this is what the fruit is. So a lot of people I've been seeing even in the comment section, like, hey, shouldn't Luffy just know what the fruit is based on that? Because people are going back and checking these things, and this is the official translations. People are swearing by it, and it's like, it's probably not the correct context.
But it's really interesting because if Luffy's just understands what his fruit is by what it does, but the fruit is nuanced and in some way slightly different, then and so then that opens up the door for is Luffy's fruit a gum fruit? Is it a rubber fruit, or is it potentially something very very similar but not quite the same? And then
Chapter
you have like
385 Artur.
Yeah, I'm checking it right now.
Okay,
I sent the Reddit thing in our chat, by the way.
There you go. Okay. But yeah, so it's really interesting to think about, because especially with the Gorosei talking about how we had to hide the name from history, or we hid the name from history for a reason. It's like, well, how would that be possible if for the Gomu Gomu no Mi, if Luffy ate the fruit and just knows what its name is? But it opens up a world of possibility, obviously leading to I guess currently the big theory is the resin theory rather than the rubber fruit.
Yeah, I don't know if we're dropping theories. I got a pretty different theory that makes it make sense where it stays the rubber fruit. But the other point being is, like, if we think like the encyclopedia that like Blackbeard or other people, Sanji had when as a kid, or that Lucky Roo possibly had, that where with the drawing and everything of the fruit, if the Gorosei of the world government named the fruit there, and essentially Luffy didn't say the name. It was Lucky Roo who told him the name, right? It was Shanks.
I thought it was
Lucky
Shanks
Roo who said it. It was. I think it was like both of them back-to-back panels or something, right? Or I'm not exactly sure.
Lucky Roo
I remember
like
Lucky was like, you ate this fruit, with the illustration, and then Shanks is like, this is the Gomu Gomu no Mi.
This is Gomu Gomu no Mi. So Lucky Roo had the illustration. Shanks said it, I believe.
Actually, it was Lucky Roo, the one who originally stole the fruit.
Yeah, that was confirmed in the viewer card or SBS, something like that.
And something else with especially in One Piece, I feel like once you believe in something, especially if you believe it from the start, that you start manifesting it. And my biggest example, and this is the goofiest thing, I always forget this guy's name. It's the starfish from Fishman Island, Papag.
Papagu.
Yeah. So he's literally a starfish, like that. He's an animal, but from birth he believed he was human, and he has this like really choice dialogue in when he was saying this. He said that the world runs on willpower, so if you believe it, that's what it is. And he believed he was human from his birth, and that's how he's able to just be human and speak. And it felt like that was a really meaningful thing, because if a starfish could just believe he's human,
I think it's just Oda Gouda, honestly.
And
I think it's just a starfish that talks.
Well, this goes back to what we were just talking about, where like Oda wants to include an interesting thing in the story, right? And so he just does it, and you don't have to think too much about it. But then after time, or maybe he does this ahead of time, I don't know, you can cultivate reasons for it. I really like this example. It feels like something that could be taken further.
It feels One Piece. It feels like really One Piece, where it's like you said, Oda, he presents an idea. Like for Luffy's Devil Fruit, maybe beginning of the story, it was just rubber in Oda's mind, right? Just a Gomu Gomu no Mi, regular. But as you start writing the story, you're like, you know what? I can play with this a little bit. I can add layers to this, because now it's like with the Gorosei and Imu, it's like nobody saw this coming for the most part. I know people have been talking about Yuderon and his theories based on numbers of chapters. He really plays with stuff like that. But for the entirety of the story, it's like Luffy just has a regular simple rubber fruit, and he's making the most of it. Now it's like, well, it's obviously a lot more than that, and we're gonna see that in the near future. I was just looking back at the chapter, and Lucky Roo says the gum fruit that we took from the enemy ship. Luffy, you didn't eat that fruit, did you? And then Shanks says to Luffy, that was the gum fruit.
Right. And the other thing about it is like there's a concept, the semi-kikon, like that concept, literally the people were turning into paper, right? Like so, and with that whole concept is like you were able to, without a devil fruit, change the how your body functions, from the hairs on your head to your intestines to your toes. And so it's like it's one of those things where it's like every once in a while, in varied terms, Oda has shown us like if you believe something, that's what you are. And essentially, if you want to change, you have to change in what you believe in. And you think about like the way Otahime addressed like the kids, indoctrinating them into like a hateful world and where they're the evil. They have to change that mentality. And then the same thing with Momonosuke, like him thinking he's a coward. He has to change that, and that's what we're seeing right now. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like if you believe in it at the very start, that's what you have to like. You have to either accept that or change that or whatever, and you manifest whatever you believe in. And so like if Luffy has been told he's a rubber man from the very beginning, if I was told that as a kid too, I'd be like, all right, I'm rubber. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of feels like one of those things where there might be other aspects, and this goes into like the theory that I developed for Luffy's fruit, where it's like there might be other aspects to the fruit, and just because he was told it was rubber, that's what he ran with, that's what he's gonna stay with. That's what it's gonna end up being, even if there are other components to it. That's what he is. He's a rubber man. He's been doing that for 1043.
What do you guys think about this idea? Because in One Piece, well, Artur, you got the translations?
No, but like regarding this thing, I kind of felt that, honestly, I feel a bit mixed with the idea that Luffy's fruit never really was rubber, because I feel like that's not a concept that has been established too much. Like, I know in like the last chapter, Kaido said, "Oh, normal rubber shouldn't be able to do this, right?"
And Dofi as well talked about like how it's
kind of, but that was more like the application of haki to the rubber more than the rubber being different itself.
I mean, it could be, but all of this was speculation to begin with. You know,
the thing is, for someone as like a veteran pirate like Doflamingo, he was still like stumped, by
but that was because Luffy wasn't kind of applying Gear 4th before. But basically with Gear 4th, he was able to kind of maintain like the
he was rubberiness, like durable.
But like he couldn't like. You couldn't like poke through the rubber like a balloon because he was haki to sort of coat it.
Yeah, well, to go off this theory just for a second, it's like what makes this so interesting to me, again, just to use a resin theory as sort of an anchor, like what's the difference between, rubber and resin? They're kind of similar things, right? And so when it comes to, I mean, people who are familiar with, like 3D model rendering and stuff like that, there's many different kinds of resin that have different properties. You can be harder or softer. You can be more flexible, more bouncy. You can be sticky, and it just sort of depends on the property of the thing. As a polycarbon. But so it's interesting if Luffy has like a more general fruit that can mimic rubber, but at the same time has more capabilities. And so he's locked in his mind, it's a rubber fruit, so his body just manifests as rubber. But the whole time, he could have done different things with his body. He could have been, understand all these different things. And so it makes it to where you can, I don't know, it's like sets your mind where you are rubber, but then over the course of time, Luffy's will overcame that, where it's like, I need to do more. So I will, and it unlocks those further capabilities. I really like that.
Well, no, but that's a good point as well, because even for Gear 2nd, we're like, how the hell did Luffy, come up with something like that? How is that possible with him, or even the different forms? Gear 4th, switching between forms, and now it's like people are saying the capabilities he's having, it seems like it's a Logia. So then that's another theory where it's like Luffy's Devil Fruit it has the abilities of all the different types. The Paramecia, Zoan, and Logia, because they're switching obviously to rubber, and now he can be a bit like malleable like Katakuri. Well, I guess I'll ask you guys, like I was gonna say about if you go with the resin theory, and how Luffy's gonna unlock it, how he's gonna awaken with mentors, and this again goes back to the narrative and Oda doing that. With how much did Oda like incorporate like Rayleigh? Rayleigh was coding ships, right? You know what I mean? Like how much was Rayleigh involved in regards to like Gear 4th or something like that? in regards to like manipulating that. And then Luffy kind of took that and ran with it. Where it's like, I know back in the day, I was like, well, Rayleigh's, he's a great mentor in regards to hockey, but he probably can't help Luffy with anything with his devil fruit. Now it's kind of like, changing my mind a bit. It was like, maybe Rayleigh did have some insight on how to, grow as a fighter in regards to using his devil fruit.
I think Rayleigh just gave Luffy some ideas maybe, but I think Luffy mostly developed it on his own.
Yeah, I was going to say with Gear 4, I feel like I remember Rayleigh was just like, oh, that's goofy. He's just like, that's an interesting thing you did there. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Like, I don't know. And oh, you can fly too. That's cool too. Like, that's kind of how I remembered it. So I don't know if Rayleigh gave him the, hey, like, you should inflate yourself and then wrap yourself in hockey. I don't know if that was Rayleigh's mentorship. I think, again, there's like, it alludes to this like interesting concept with Luffy's fruit that, the thing with the resin thing and like I'm like, I don't like it when people are too set in stone with one way or the other, whether it's a mythical zone or a thing. I'm fine with it. My biggest counter with the resin thing is that it's not necessarily a counter, but it can't just be the resin part. Like, there has to be, like, if it's just a substance change,
there has to be more to it.
Yeah, if it's just a substance change to a Logia, like, that doesn't, like, are we saying Kaido is like gonna lose to a Logia? Like, I think he's just super strong, right? Like a Logia part wouldn't exactly help him there. There has to be something else, and the reason why I was thinking that is like, I think like Hawkins fruit is a straw fruit, but then he can do like weird crazy extensions where he can connect someone's fate to like a voodoo thing, and that's like, you can tie that to the concept of a straw, like straw fruit. And so like, if it is the resin fruit or whatever it is, there should be an extension like to that, like a unique tie-in to the power that makes it more powerful. And
it's like an ironic thing that Oda does from time to time, where it's like the fruit is one thing and it's somewhat loosely associated with like voodoo dolls and straw dolls. So I'm just gonna make that the power.
I remember some people saying, what if like Hawkins just has some like magic voodoo powers and he ties that with his fruit? But
we have no like nothing.
So here's an idea for you. So again, going with the resin thing, right? So Luffy can now change his body into a different substance. How does that influence his ideas concerning the next gear? What was limiting him from getting to gear 5th? Well, it was, rubber body, you got muscle, you got bone, you got blood. Well, now he has an entirely different structure potentially in order to perhaps come up with a new idea. And this might lead into something like gear 5th, to what you're talking about, if needing like something else.
I think something as well with resin was like retaining air. And for Luffy in gear 4th, it seems like he has to stay inflated in a way. So the resin could completely change the whole concept of his gears and remove that drawback maybe of like just how the excessive use of haki, and make him a lot more efficient, and that would make him a lot more stronger. So that could be something, but I do think it's a lot more to it because it's something that was hidden. Why was it hidden? No concept that was discussed is like, Luffy, what if he can like turn into like an actual giant now, but not just with gear 3rd, but just using all the concepts that he has, and therefore that's why they were scared of that fruit, because just the power and the strength behind it. If Luffy can turn into a giant while using gear 2nd, while using gear 4th at that size, the devastating power that he could use, it's like it's crazy. So something I also thought about was how many people would be aware of this Joyboy thing, right? Like Joyboy being back. Like, I don't think just even high-ranking Marines probably aren't aware of this, because even the Gorosei were like, this fruit is just a rumor. Who would be aware of this fruit and its new properties to say, okay, now this is what we were scared of? Is it just Emu?
But like, is it the fruit they're scared of, or is Joyboy appearing they're scared of? Because Joyboy, like I said, there's technically been different Joyboy candidates. There's also been like Kaido, there's been others, and they've always kind of just sort of been afraid of those. But even just kind of putting that aside, like specifically, I don't think that Luffy being considered the Joyboy is so much the fear. It's more like just how much Luffy is advancing to this point that is kind of getting the government as like, oh, wait a second, like this guy is.
I hope not.
Sure.
I hope not.
Specifically, I mean, like,
I hope it.
Also, like, the thing is,
I hope prophecy ties into it. Like there's something that people know, and it can be interpreted in different ways. But that's kind of, it doesn't have to be this, of course. But I like that.
No, but it is with this. Like, what I wanted to mention, Sarah, is that like in chapter 906, it was that we see Imu, and we see him looking at the straw hat, and he looks at Luffy's bounty poster, and he's like, So I think that already sees, like, he's kind of sees that connection. Maybe he's just sort of worried that, like, oh, it's kind of Luffy, you know, like, potentially going to be the new Joy Boy. And it's also kind of worth noting that, like, literally in that moment, Luffy's bounty went from 500 million to 1.5 billion, which, yeah, he did beat Karakuri, but, like, that is a big jump. And I'm just sort of wondering if, like, around that point, the government was kind of like, uh-oh, they're starting to worry a little bit. And, like, right now, they're starting to worry even more.
It's a weird concept. But JB, what were you saying?
Well, it's just, you know, so it just seemed very sudden to me that, you know, obviously you have Imu, and so that's been set up, and that there's something about Luffy that's caught their attention. Even, you know, it's like Imu's not choosing between Big Mom and Kaido. You know, it's Vivi, Shirahoshi, Blackbeard, and Luffy. So already you've got some setup for this. But then even then, it wasn't until it appeared as though they went through the battle the whole time, CP0 did, and they gave us the odds, and they were basically like, there's no way that Luffy's going to win. The best that we could hope for is that Luffy will do enough damage to Kaido that we can
weaken them
both. Exactly. But then there's just a sudden flip where it's like they realize like no, Luffy is going to win. And so
that's not CP0. That's the Gorosei who are worried about Luffy.
Yeah,
I don't think they're worried about Luffy winning. They're just worried about Luffy. Period. And so they're like interfere in the fight.
But they weren't
matter
as worried initially. Okay, so
but,
the thing
but
is,
we
they
didn't
were
see the
about
Gorosei earlier in the arc. The first time the Gorosei appear in this arc, they were like, "Oh, that fruit is dangerous. We need to do something about it."
But the thing is, CP0 being there, that's the will of the Gorosei,
right?
For the most part, right?
They
and
got
their
an order.
intentions, right? That's an order, and the focus was Nico Robin, right? That's it seemed like the
right.
focus.
So they
was,
got that. But that order was sent by Lucci, not the Gorosei, right? So you're saying maybe the Gorosei.
Well, the Gorosei have always wanted. Robin's always been, you know, prioritized.
So that's the priority, right? For them, they're like, okay, we're here. That's the priority. Now for the Gorosei, all of a sudden they had their conversation because we went away from it for a bit. Then they're like, the thing is, even with the Gorosei, within the Gorosei, they weren't even on the same page because one is saying it's a rumor, and one is like, wait, hold on, though, like this may be something. So my assumption is that off screen, the more they talked about it, and then reports are coming in about all these things going on, it's like, okay, let's just keep this simple. Let's get Luffy, okay? Let's just get this kid who we've been trying to get for a long time, because it's at this point you cannot ignore it anymore.
Well,
right? It is the.
You know, but I think that the Gorosei talking about the fruit a few chapters ago and then this chapter, they're very close together. So I think the orders probably could have happened literally minutes apart, all things considered.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Well, absolutely. I think it's like within that conversation, they came to that conclusion.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also Big Mom fell, right? So it's just like,
maybe that, yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, at some point you got to use common sense. If this, like, we have a straw hat that Imu is looking at, then we have this kid who is the son of Dragon, the grandkid of Garp. He was trained personally by Rayleigh. He's been moving through the New World. At what point do you say, like, no matter what, that is our focus. He's our focus.
Well, it seems,
and now we're in Wano, and a lot of strange things are happening. They mentioned how Wano is really important. A lot of big names are gathering in Wano for a reason. You know, you got to put two and two together at some point.
Yeah, my specific thing, right, and this goes back to like why Luffy's fruit might be what I think it is that why if they want to eliminate Luffy, right, why would they order him to be eliminated at once? Like, even if Luffy beats Kaido or he loses, whatever, like if Right. They could wait until after he fights Kaido to do something, right? But the specific thing is at once. Why is that important? And to me,
because they didn't want to awaken.
But the thing is,
the devil fruit connection, I think.
But that also ties into prophecy. It feels like to me, or it could, that they would know that this event would lead to his awakening.
It's 100% at work here.
The Gorosei specifically said this fruit hasn't awakened in centuries, so they wanted to stop it from awakening. It's like stop Luffy before he manages to awaken.
But why is it a conversation now? They've known he's had the Gomu Gomu no Mi for practically the entire story.
That's kind of one of the things.
Do you
that I
guys
wonder
think of
about.
Shanks? Do you guys think of Shanks in this situation where like that's what he told them? Because a lot of people are speculating that he's the person who went to them. Hey, I got to talk to you about a certain pirate,
Luffy.
and he talked to him about Luffy.
Wait, he ratted out Luffy, so I think Shanks is
Whoa, no. First off, let's establish this. Shanks is evil as no, okay. But at the same time,
I got my theory.
maybe Shanks was under Roger. And so he has a direct line here with people that read the true history for sure. Probably know as much as anybody else other than Emu. And so it would be interesting. And maybe even Emu doesn't know as much, because has he traveled all the way to the inn and put all the poneglyphs together? I don't know.
Don't know.
And it could be like half of history sort of there where
Yeah.
But anyway, so the point is that maybe Shanks was trying to create an environment in which Luffy could become the chosen one. Right? And so part of that involved creating maybe having the government act against him, but knowing that he's going to win, having faith.
I'm sorry, but
JB,
I don't like the idea.
Crazy thought, right?
Yeah,
because you're saying
that is
Shanks,
like conspiracy theory.
Shanks went to the Gorosei to specifically antagonize them,
right?
And say, "Hey,
attack Luffy with the CP0 guys, so he then awakens the first."
There's some credence to it here, and it's getting a little scary because first off, they gave Shanks an audience, right, for whatever reason. And they respected him to the point that they had a conversation with him, and we know Shanks knows a lot. So if he came and said, hey, I got to talk to you about a certain pirate. Do you guys know, I'm sure, about a devil fruit from back then? What, like, you ever thought about Monkey D. Luffy having that fruit? And he's going to awaken at some point. What are you going to do about it? You're focused on Blackbeard, but are you really paying attention to Luffy? Is it creating this environment for Luffy to basically blossom into what Shanks expected him to be? Because again, we don't know what Roger told Shanks. Shanks betting his arm on the future. I don't think it was specifically about the devil fruit. I think it was also about things Luffy said.
Yeah,
but exactly. Shanks was entrusted with this fruit, or he went for this. It's now seeming like Shanks targeted this fruit, right? For whatever reason, got the fruit based on what Who was talking about. Then maybe he was supposed to choose someone, right?
But then it happened to be Luffy.
Luffy happened to eat the fruit, and he's like, "What the fuck?" Like remember with Kaido with Yamato? Like I didn't get that fruit for you to eat it, but then.
But it ties back into fate. It ties back into fate.
It ties back into fate heavily.
Maybe that explains why they didn't eat the fruit, like any his crew ate the fruit, and why they carried it around for that time. But it does just kind of seem like like they were like looking for someone to give the fruit, and Luffy ate it, and they're like, oh well, just.
But it was more than that, because remember he went to Rayleigh and said this kid been saying the same things Roger said, but then also. He bet his arm. He's like, I'm betting my arm, saying, all right, this is not the person I chose, but this is the person fate chose.
Look, I firmly believe that Luffy said the things that Roger said before eating the fruit. I think that Shanks specifically believed in Luffy because of what he saw in Luffy. If Shanks only placed his bet on Luffy because he ate the fruit, that retroactively ruins Chapter 1 of One Piece.
It's not just the fruit, though. It wouldn't be just the fruit.
It's both.
Yeah, but still. But like, if it's just because
like
of the fruit, I'm like, oh wow,
though.
you're the chosen one. Like that just.
That's the nail in the coffin.
Well, think about how difficult that decision would be for Shanks. Okay, you have this fruit, but you don't know who should go to. So it's like, all right, well, we gotta start building up a list of candidates. Like, look, like who is this? And then all of a sudden you meet this kid who could potentially be a candidate already at this point in time. You're like, I like this kid, but do you know if he's the one? No, you don't know that. And then he actually eats the fruit, and then it's like, okay, well, I don't get a say here. You can see how.
No, I hate that. Like, I feel that should be something that should have come 100% spontaneously from Shanks' own heart, just from who he sees in Luffy.
I like
and
fate.
I think that's what. And I don't. But like, no, but specifically, the thing here is that what I like about Shanks placing kind of like the hand on Luffy is that it is a complete bet, because there is nothing to Shanks aside from Luffy's own will and dreams and ambitions that tells him, yeah, this kid is going to become the king of the pirates. The fruit already makes it like, okay, this could be the case. This is a likely chance. I don't like that. And like,
it's 100% a gamble. It's a gamble.
I agree.
He's a kid.
I agree
you
with
have no
idea.
idea what he's going to grow up to be. And
but with the fruit, like it kind of ruins that.
I've
know?
been
And I agree.
I think it's a philosophical thing, right? Like, do you like fate or not? It's really the line in the sand here. And I think throughout the story, Oda makes it clear his stance on the story. It is a story about fate.
I think that fate could be. I mean, I like the idea of fate when it is executed well, and I agree that fate.
I like when fate isn't fate.
Piece.
I like when fate is designed. By people that are alive, you know, that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah,
I've been sitting
that's
here
not fake.
That's exactly,
smiling this whole time. I can't wait to drop my Shanks video, but during this conversation, like all the stuff that you guys are saying, I'm just like, oh man, I can't wait to say this. But something I just thought about just now was that something I was thinking about is that Straw Hat is kind of like indestructible in a lot of ways. It hasn't been burned. There's so many different things.
Buggy.
And there's he cut it. He cut it, right? There's one material. There's one material we know that won't be destroyed, and that's Vivre card. So is it possible that the Straw Hat is a Vivre card for the Gomu Gomu no Mi?
I have not even thought about that. That's interesting.
Huh.
Yeah.
And that's how Shanks got to the fruit with the Straw Hat, and then when Luffy ate it, like he gave it to him because it's like
I totally forgot about Vivre cards being a mystery, so I'm just over here.
That is
Vivre cards are made
from
nails. Vivre cards are made from nails.
Yeah, but the when it was described, it was that you can't burn it, you can't destroy it. It is tied to your life, like the lifespan of whoever originated it, and we don't know the origination
as well.
Aren't paper and straw different things, or am I missing my science here?
I mean, like, we don't know how it was created in a sense, but like we do get an idea of like what the material. We don't know what the material might be. I mean, I don't know about you,
it's a
but
straw hat.
but that's what I'm saying.
Hat.
What Straw Hat? Like the scene that I'm thinking about is Logtown. Logtown. Sorry, I pronounced that weird. Logtown, where he gets struck by lightning. Luffy's burned a little bit. His clothes a little tattered. Buggy's destroyed. The Straw Hat is like you see the panel where the Straw Hat like has lightning going from the Straw Hat to the sword, and yet the Straw Hat's just completely untouched. And then time and time again, explosion. Doesn't matter what it's gone through. It's just impervious to everything. And the one thing
but
that's
similarly,
like that,
then why didn't Luffy's clothes just burn into the air? Like they would do by normal lightning.
Manga magic.
So, I mean, Luffy
they grew and their clothes grew with them.
I would say that in this thing, like JB was saying, is about whether or not you believe or you care about fate.
Yeah, can I mention something about that?
One second. Let me ask you. With you, and you say you don't like fate, right?
I was joking about it.
Or it's like, I guess it seems like it rubs you the wrong way a little bit. Like,
not necessarily. Okay, the thing is that like I think that fate can be used well, and I made an entire video about this in like my True History series where I talk about fate, and I think specifically that fate exists as a concept in the world of One Piece. Maybe it's only an ideology, or maybe it's an actual power, but it is a thing that many characters talk about. It's particularly it's been always associated with the D clan, because they've been referred to as the Fateful Day Clan. And I do think it is kind of something that exists, but I do think that the people of the D carved their own fate. We were told that the duel between Ace and Blackbeard, for example, was a crossroads of fate, and any of the two could have won, right? It was two fates going against each other, and to me that indicates that the one with the strongest will, the one with the strongest will to change things and to carve their own fate, are able to manipulate this power in some form. So I do think it's there, but I think that ultimately, if Luffy has the power of fate, then that's just simply him having a special power, but him carving everything out of his own right. And that doesn't mean that when he was a kid...
So you're saying self-fulfilling prophecy manifestation. That's what you're saying is basically
in a sense, perhaps. What I don't like is the idea that everything was set in stone.
It's preordained.
Preordained, because it breaks two things. On one hand, it breaks the sense of hard effort and work that is so important to One Piece and Shonen, and it also breaks the core idea of One Piece of liberty, of freedom. Because if you're a slave to fate, how are you free?
You can remove it, right? And how would you know that anything would be different? It's not as if Luffy's gonna try less because things are actually set in stone. Like think about it as a concept for a minute. Like in the future, you don't know what will happen. You don't know if it's set in stone or not. So the characters in the stories, their actions don't change, and certainly that would be true for Luffy, because Luffy's not going to be motivated in any different way because of any knowledge that might exist in the world that we as readers would appreciate. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
One
thing I want to say is that I don't think necessarily that fate, or like even just the idea that everything is preordained, or that Luffy is the chosen one or the reincarnation of Joyboy, I don't think that is impossible. I think there's a very high chance it can happen. In fact, I think it's probably going to happen in some form or another. I just don't like it so much.
Yeah, well,
depending on how it's executed.
So
If it's
Artur, let
executed
me ask all you guys.
Yeah, sorry.
With fate and destiny and even things that Odin knew, right? And things that Roger's laughing at. To me, it's kind of obvious that somebody from back then, 800 years ago, Void Century, knew what would happen, how things would transpire. And things were set into...
At least roughly.
Things were set in motion. Roughly, things were set in motion to preserve the history for it to be found, right?
Did they know it would happen, or did they just hope that someone would one day find the One Piece and try to do everything to encourage people to go out there? Did
the
Roger
reason why I feel like they knew
Roger
was because
know that with his death, like, oh yeah, this kid is gonna find the One Piece, or did he just, okay, I'm gonna die and encourage the entire world to follow this so that someone will hopefully be able to find the path? And similarly, Shanks thought this kid.
It depends on what he found at Laugh Tale, right? Where it's like where in his mind, like I said, when Rayleigh said, based on what you find, what will your answer be? May be different. For Roger, he felt like his mission, based on his health, based on what he could accomplish, being too early, I have to continue this. I have to make it so that someone else can follow in my footsteps or surpass me.
Charlie's powers exist as well.
But then I think exactly, Madam Shirley.
Yeah, but that's seeing the future, and it's a future that can change. It's the thing that Bej said with Katakuri. You can predict the future, you can see into the future, but then anyone can change it.
But they said that she was never wrong with her premonitions, right? With like she saw the future.
Yeah, because no one changed it.
Yeah.
Do you think that Luffy will destroy?
With Katakuri,
it's all about
Katakuri always
though.
saw things happening, but once people kind of sort of reacted to that, they were able to change the things that Katakuri saw.
So do you think with Madam Shirley, you think that no one, like Luffy, will not destroy Fishman Island?
It will happen, but maybe it could also not happen if it is different. And I think regardless, with Fisherman Island, Charlie also misses a lot of the context there.
Yeah, well, the prophecy is vague, right? And certainly it's
vague on purpose.
It doesn't influence the person that, as it would appear to us, would matter most, which is Luffy. Luffy's the one to destroy Fisherman Island. Well, Luffy doesn't care about that, And so that's this is story magic, right? And you got to keep that in mind always. The prophecies and fate and this sort of thing, destiny is a trope that's used. Apply that to real life and it gets a little bit more murky, but they do the best that they can with a thing that they know works. And the way that they make it work is that they make sure that everything lines up so that it's satisfying to read about. And so that's just I mean, that's just kind of...
No, that's been the heavily debated topic recently, after the Joyboy stuff and Awakening stuff, is fate and destiny, where people are comparing it, of course, to Naruto and all these different things, which, is turning some people off. I hate the fact that Luffy is this chosen kid.
So I mean, for me, it's been a discussion for like a very long time, because this is like the mentions of fate have been there across the entire series. But to me, what matters is just that it doesn't contradict the core fundamental ideals of One Piece, because that is the instrumental thing that just cannot be touched, or the entire series risks to crumble. And I think that it goes for any series where the core ideals need to be followed, and if you introduce like a plot concept that sort of ruins it, it can go badly. But like, for example, time travel sometimes ruins stories because it can go against the core principles and ideas, but it can also be done well, like in One Piece, where someone just leaps into the future and that's it, and it doesn't ruin it. It just depends on how Oda executes it. Exactly.
Remember when that whole concept was introduced, a lot of people were like, yo, what are we doing? Time travel is never done.
And I predicted it. And people were calling me crazy because I theorized that they did time travel. Like, Oda would never do time travel. It's a horrible thing, and it happened.
Yeah.
And it was similar with the thing of Fate. When I talked about Fate.
Let me ask you guys this about what Whoopslap said about Luffy, his dream or his destiny.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember that panel?
I mentioned that in my video as well. Yeah, it's been there across the entire series. That's lovely.
Can you explain to me what we're talking about?
Reference.
There's a chapter where I think it's chapter 96 or something like that, where Whoopslap says, when Makino says like, oh, it seems like Luffy might really reach his dream, and Whoopslap simply says, is that his dream or his fate?
Or his destiny? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, even talking about fate, right? Like, I think the prime example of this is Logtown. You want fate to be earned, basically, right? Like, determination, that's what will lead Luffy to becoming the person capable of saving the world. And undoubtedly that's going to be true. But I think at the same time, Oda establishes that even for the most gifted and for the most able, that there's this, sorry, my chicken's going off, but there's this component of luck. And this exists in real life just the same. That the person capable of saving the world is not only going to be the strongest. Damn it! It's not only going to be the strongest. It's not only going to be able to make allies and have help, but also be incredibly lucky. And so you have Logtown, where did Luffy do anything to earn Dragon showing up and saving him? What?
Blackbeard did say that. He said that only those who are brave and are willing to face life are the ones who make it.
Absolutely, but why can't both be true at the same time? You still need luck too. Blackbeard even acknowledges this to some extent as well. Yeah. It's like, I might not find the Yami Yami no Mi, and that was a realistic possibility in his mind. Him finding it was lucky. He was fortunate, but he's going to seize that fortune to continue on his path to his end game. So that's kind of how I see it. So
in Impel Down, they mentioned like Blackbeard was lucky as well.
Yeah,
like with him after he got attacked.
They also said that about
Lucky
Luffy
I had that
too. Right. Doc Q.
And so that,
right.
Yeah, and so that's what people are pushing back against so much.
Luck and fate tie a lot as concepts in Japanese culture. I just want to say that they're basically the same idea.
Right, and so
but in Japanese, the concepts of luck and fate are basically the same thing.
Yeah, and so it's like, I think that's what the community is pushing back against most, is in storytelling, luck is unsatisfying. It can be unsatisfying. You don't want to. Yeah. It has to feel earned, right? Like the characters are being competent, proficient in their, and so it's a fine line to ride.
Well, the thing is that I feel like the arc where a lot of people felt like the luck maybe went too far was Whole Cake Island, where it was just people started to feel like over and over the Straw Hats. It just they kept getting away from someone, and again, like Big Mom was like, wait, come on, like how do these things keep happening?
Yeah,
and then people were blaming her for being incompetent, and it's like, well, is she incompetent or they're just really lucky?
Or is Luffy very competent? But that is a dangerous line to walk. That is the problem. Like you start using that a lot, and a lot of story moments feel cheap. And you can argue they already have felt up until this point. Like this isn't a new problem.
Yeah, it has. I mean, there are moments in Wano where people didn't like. Right, where it feels like I don't know about that. It is what it is. That's why I think Wano consensus. People are gonna say Wano is an amazing arc, but there I think is a growing sense of like, okay, Wano has some amazing peaks, but it has some things that's happened where it's just like, all right, this is getting a bit ridiculous. And for Luffy being the chosen one or being the person that is supposed to change the world, which he always kind of has been, you want to feel like, again, you want to feel like it's earned. Right, you don't want to feel like it's cheap, and you want to feel like these situations matter with tension, and you want the tone to feel right. And certain moments, and especially the death fake outs, it takes away from that. For some people,
well, with the fate and all the other concepts, I think like one of the most important things, right? Like Artur is saying, like this preordained destiny type of thing, and Madame Charlie seeing the future and that kind of stuff. I think what's really important in One Piece is like this acceptance and the people that are directly fighting this throughout the whole story, way before the story, has been the Gorosei. And it's important to look at how they went about it. They directly tried to take things out of this in terms of like the playing board. They try to do that, but when you really think about it, they're more along the lines of delaying it. They constantly want to delay it, and you think back to I think it's also in 906 too, like it wasn't there, like the great cleansing and bringing things back to equilibrium. That means like they want to reset it. So it's them acknowledging that this future, this thing, it's going to happen.
It's almost inevitable, but we have to be prepared.
Yeah.
So
they're not fighting against it,
right?
They don't want to fight directly against it. They just want to stall. They want to reset. They don't think that they can beat it. Essentially, that's the way I look at it. They're like,
or the thing is, they know something is coming though. They know,
but if they think they can't beat it, why are they trying to kill Luffy? If they think they can't beat it, are they just accepting Luffy's going to be the Pirate King? I do think they're afraid it's gonna happen, and they're trying to do what they can to stop it. And they try to kind of like take the easy approach at first, like, you know, let's try. It feels like more over time. It's like, oh god, we're getting desperate. It's like, no. Here we need to like take action immediately.
Yeah.
So when I think about
that's a good point, Artur.
When I think about like equilibrium, right? I think about like two scales, right? And the way I kind of am looking at it right now is that, you know, if they're trying to bring things equilibrium, they're looking at one side of the scale, right? So one side is the world government, one side is like the pirates or whatever. However you want to level the scales out, there's many components, right? And it's kind of like they've been ignoring this. Powers. They've been ignoring this one thing, and they're noticing that if this goes any further, we won't be able to bring it back to equilibrium. It'll be too difficult, and that's
like the balance. That balance that
you're
talking about.
Can I mention something about the balance? It's like we know that the balance of One Piece is set on three powers: the admirals or the marines in general, the Shichibukai, and the Yonko. The Shichibukai are now gone, and 2 Yonko might fall after this arc. What is going to happen with
everything
the equilibrium?
Everything is out of whack.
Exactly, and specifically, the Marines, the world government, is the one that's unaffected, and they're the ones who are at risk at really going berserk after this.
Well,
which
they're
might
at risk, but then
stuff.
They feel.
And Luffy is the counter weapon to that. Exactly.
They feel a lot better about it at the same time.
They want to specifically take
have SSG,
Luffy.
Right? So
yeah, exactly.
They feel they. I think
it's all them, but that's the thing. They're the ones with all the power, and Luffy's potentially the only threat possible that could stop the world government after like everything just kind of. After they gain so much power when the other power has fallen off balance, a new Joyboy may legitimately be the only one who can stop them.
Well, they're thinking as well of like, for instance, they gain this power, right, or the equilibrium, it changes or it goes out of whack. At this point, what if the other Yonko say, "Hey,
let's join
what
up.
If we just join forces?" You know what I mean? What if we just join forces?
Or even
with who?
Or even think about it like this: the Yonko have been
opposing Shanks.
No. The Yonko have been opposing each other in the New World. So maybe part of this balance has also been the pirates working against themselves. So you take out some of their contemporaries, and then all of a sudden,
keep them in that deadlock.
What happens to the entire New World? Well, it starts to unify under one, a pirate king, and that's the fear. Then the power, unlike what you're saying, then the power balance goes in the other direction, where the government should be the one to be afraid.
Well, so the government is going to encourage a deadlock, because if the 4 great pirates are just consistently fighting against each other, there's nobody that's going to come out on top.
So
that's why they were so scared. That's why they were so scared when Kaido and Big Mom allied.
What's important,
right,
though,
when
is
they allied, and when Whitebeard and the Blackbeard stuff, they wanted to like replace that as soon as possible. Even the Crocodile, his position, they wanted to replace that balance as soon as possible.
Sir, what were you saying, Alam?
So one of the important things I think with the Gorosei too is like when you kind of look at their perspective in Onigashima, they almost don't care about Kaido, whether he wins or loses. What are they going to do if Kaido loses? They were planning on just replacing him, upholding what he's there, right? Like just under the radar, no one would know. They would just uphold what Kaido's doing. And what's even more important than that, and I just put out a video on Kaido, like analyzing his thing. When you really think about Kaido's role in One Piece, he is countering Dragon as in like Luffy's dad Dragon, in the sense of Kaido's been pretty much producing weapons that have fueled every single war across the planet that Dragon's trying to instigate. Once Doflamingo are taken out of the equation, Dragon comes out, right? There's another equilibrium that's lost. And so the world government, yes, they're on one side of the scale, but one of the things that people miss is that the world government, especially when you look at the CP0, they're insidiously on the other side of the scale too. They're wanting to uphold these things, and they, for a lot of reasons, I feel like they prefer to have Kaido there. They prefer to have Big Mom there.
Here's a thought.
Because they've been so stagnant, they've been so complacent, they've been there for however many years,
right.
And there's been equilibrium, right? But like once you throw in Luffy, he's taking out all these players. Luffy's the problem, they like the Yonkos. When you look at it, like they're throwing the CP0 out there, like, hey, we need to negotiate with these Yonkos, and like we see that Big Mom's inviting them to parties and stuff, So it's
the speech that Law made at Punk Hazard, right? It's like everything has been stagnant, but we broke the gears. And now everything is going to fall apart.
Well, here's a thought for you, and this is really interesting, tying off of what you said. It's like when you look at the underground, which still I think needs to be fleshed out more, you can see how clear a presence that the government has through Stussy and others. There's influence. They have a presence there. I think ideally, maybe this is the government's end game. What they hope to achieve is that there aren't pirate Yonko, or at least if there are, they're government agents. So they become they plant, like X-Drake, for instance. I know that X-Drake isn't going to become a Yonko, but like just in general, like you have a Marine that goes and hides among the pirates. Then what if he becomes the Yonko? Then you have full control. And I don't think that they have full control right now, even though it's worked out in that way. But
sorry, but Drake taking over Kaido's like a bit...
Right. Yeah. But you get the point,
Well, so let me ask you guys this question, because this is actually important for this like Luffy theory that I have. What do you think the Gorosei is most like? What have they been countering? What are they most afraid of in One Piece?
Someone finding the One Piece and using it. It's like straight up. Like that is the biggest threat of all.
Another question I have: do you think they know everything Imu knows?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I have another question respect that I want to ask you guys. Do you think the Gorosei are really important, or are they just Imu's puppets? Like, are they super strong, they're going to get their own fights and character developments and stuff, or are they really just Imu's
They're
puppets?
former warriors, I think.
So
I think
I do agree, but like to which level? Are they like Yonko level, or they're just
based on
warriors?
CP0 and like how personally I overestimated them a little bit. I don't want to do the same with the Gorosei here. So I'm gonna say probably around commanders.
Yeah.
I'm
Right?
glad
At this
you
point.
asked this, because I was going to bring this up early in the conversation when Joyboy was saying, like, is Shanks evil, whatever. Something I wanted to point out was that, like, when you think about, like, one of the most important scenes that we saw at the very beginning with Shanks was with Whitebeard. And what he said was, like, this is an enemy's place. And what did he do because he was an enemy's place? He let his haki run rampant, destroy even his ship, like, his crew, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened when Shanks went to the Gorosei? If it was an enemy's place, how come his Conqueror's haki wasn't running rampant? The guards weren't affected. So it's kind of this interesting thing where, well, the Gorosei also dismissed their guards, right? So that means, like, at the end of the day, they're not really that afraid of Shanks, but Shanks also didn't throw up his haki. Is that him, saying, like,
He's comfortable.
Subtly saying that this isn't an enemy.
He's more comfortable there than at White.
I guess he just didn't want to be rude.
Didn't want to. He was rude to Whitebeard, but not the Gorosei. So then, is he afraid of the Gorosei? That means that the Gorosei are really strong, right? Like
but me with my
maybe you bring
homies.
too much attention to him.
It's me with my homies versus me when I'm at a job interview. I'm at a job interview. I'm like, I'm not gonna let my haki go so rampant. I'm gonna just.
It's like taking your shoes off at the door. No haki.
Yeah, he left the shoes on Whitebeard's ship, but like for the Gorosei, he took his shoes off. Maybe they got a welcome mat or something saying to take his shoes off. No, I would say like more so he doesn't want to bring too much attention to him.
So, but that's a really interesting scene though, because then it's kind of like the Gorosei, are they that strong that they're equals to Shanks, that they can counter Shanks, they can restrain him, or they just know that Shanks wouldn't do shit to them? You know what I mean? Like, what is it?
I think it's the last one.
Okay, so then it's if they're not gonna do shit to Shanks, or Shanks isn't gonna do shit to them, then you said earlier Shanks not being evil.
I believe they referenced Shanks before in the past, saying, well, basically it's Shanks. Like, hey, it's Shanks.
Yeah, it's not like as chaotic. They know, like, he's coming here to talk, and then he's gonna leave. Like,
I'm sure over the years they understand. They get a feel for the personalities of the Yonko, right? Like, I think if Kaido pulled up to Marineford, like, yo, the war is over. Like, he would never do some shit like that. But the Marines, they would keep fighting, right? They would keep fighting. They're not gonna stop. And Sengoku said, you know what? Because it's you, we're gonna allow this. So it's just like it's a rapport there. And if Shanks has been, as some of us speculate, trying to maintain the balance for a while, he's on their side, right? Yeah. They're like,
that's why he went to talk to them, because he wanted to like obviously we're not allies, but like I can trust that you may take care of this thing.
Well, even the scene that you described, even that whole part of him, like, will stop because it's you, Shanks, right? The only other character who's had that kind of like regard is Doflamingo. So it's like Doflamingo had a very interesting relationship with everyone, right? So Shanks, might have a similar kind of background. Not like,
but also we gotta think. We also gotta think about the person on the other side of this in Sengoku, right? Where if a kind who was a fleet admiral?
Fuck you.
Would it be the same? You know, like grace? Would he have the same grace?
Here's an interesting thought for you guys. You talk about like the three great powers, right? The Shichibukai, the Marines, and the pirates. But if you like break down what those powers are conceptually outside of the specific labels they're given in the story, you have the system, basically organization and law and order. You have pirates free going where they want, and you have those that are allied with the system. And so in a sense, it's like the powers break down into Shanks being a part of that group potentially, that, you know, and you think about like for instance, when Roger fought when he fought Rox in God Valley, you know, it's like in that instance, what he's the part of the power that he's operating under, he's not fighting the Marines in that instance. He's fighting other pirates that fight other pirates. So I like apply that to something like the Void Century is really interesting as far as like the entire conflict that was taking place there. You know, it's like, well, like what actually happened during the Void Century? What are the Gorosei and I'm or Emu, you know, actually worried about? And so when you talk about like Shanks as, you know, trying to maintain the balance, I like the thought that the government, you know, even though they may be the antagonists of the series right now, when it was initially created, actually served some sort of purpose. Like the ultimate evil of the world was pirates like Kaido or pirates like Blackbeard, and they all unified, including other pirates, against this fear that would lead to like Armageddon. You know what I mean?
JB, that's a great point, and something I want to touch on with that was with his Joyboy, Artur mentioned that as well. You get information and you absorb it differently. You have different ways you want to go about things. For instance, Rox, right? And for Rox, for him, I think King of Lightning had mentioned this, where for Blackbeard and his powers, liberation, you know, things like that. Where how about you have these two converging powers, these two converging ideals that want to liberate the world in a different way? You know, bringing in like a different anime, Naruto, where Sasuke wanted to be the great evil, where like everybody can band against it and everybody will come together because he's the great evil. He's a big bad guy. Where for Rox, it's like, well, I want a better world, but I have to erase everything and then become the king of that to make a better world. Where, you know, it's like a lot of people in One Piece, they absorb information and they do different things with the information they gather. So even like Rayleigh talked about it, like after Luffy or when they find the One Piece, their answer. But then I think about Roger and Garp, right? Where Roger felt strongly enough about it to fight against the Rocks pirates. You know, like
why?
That's insane.
One of the
why
biggest
would
questions
you do that?
From the story, you've chosen the celestial dragons, essentially, and at this point we assume Roger knows at least some things about the true history. You've chosen the most evil people on the planet over Rox. And Rox, you know, I think that Rox was probably pretty bad, but overall you would think that the pirate world would sort of band together, seeing the injustice, but Roger didn't.
Roger did not do that.
I just want to direct you guys. I told you about this, Brago. Like this, I have this series right now called Secret World, and everything that we're talking about is lined up from the God. I use God Valley as a start to talk about why this happens, and I think you guys would be really interested in it because, like, you start seeing a lot of crazy parallels to like even Fisher Tiger and so many different ways. But then you start wondering, like what actually happened with I lost my train of thought, but with
now you're good.
With so the mutiny with when we're seeing it in this chapter with Big Mom saying like you shouldn't trust Rocks and this mutiny, but when you look at the Yonko and what they're doing, they're essentially creating, like Joyboy was saying, like these organizations, but these essentially alternatives to the world government. And when you kind of break it down, they execute it in an evil way for sure, but like Big Mom wants to have a family.
Have their own intentions.
Big Mom wants to have a family. Whitebeard wanted a family.
Absolutely.
Kaido, he wants to have like this. He like we don't know what the start of his intentions, ambitions. King.
Something changed with him though.
Right. But so all these Rocks pirates created these empires, and you gotta wonder, like, Rox is probably a good guy, right? Like, what was going on in God Valley? And so that's what that series is about. And I was telling you, the last video in the series is the one I want you to check out, really. But that's where, you know, I'll just hint out here that it ends with the Shanks part. It's pretty crazy.
Well, think about Whitebeard. Think about Whitebeard.
This conversation is so exciting. Talking to you guys.
It really is.
You really think that Rox could potentially have been a good person?
Well, charismatic,
based on your perspective,
charismatic,
right?
and also
with that green, with that like.
I think he has an ideal that others can gravitate around.
I'm sure he was a fucking conniving bastard to the fact that Big Mom is telling Kaido not to trust him.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm sure his intentions are like, I'm getting rid of the fucking celestial dragons.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
he's charismatic and he has an ideal that others can unify behind.
You know what I mean?
He's like, I want to get rid of the celestial dragons to become the king of the world and rule over everyone.
So because they think that
let's not forget, his dream is to be the king of the world.
But we don't know that. We heard that from Sengoku. We heard that from hearsay, right? I think the main...
But also...
you go
real quick.
No, yeah, but like Sengoku
said
that was his dream, and I feel like Sengoku was being very honest there. He wasn't hiding the history of the government.
I never believe the world
you can never be 100% certain.
Bro, they said Dragon was the world's worst criminal.
That was Sengoku.
Dragon's the world's worst criminal, but then he's running around giving everyone hope and dreams and liberating people. You know, they said that for Dragon.
Exactly.
And they made Dragon look evil too. They really did make him look evil at the start. And I feel like
history is determined by the victors.
Yeah, but that's the government. That's not Sengoku. Sengoku was like being open.
Sengoku's not a good person.
Yeah, but Sengoku also said that he doesn't know that. Sengoku did admit in that same there, that he wasn't there. Everything he's heard is from somebody else.
Rox's dream. Yeah, but probably from Garp. Because Garp told him about it.
But Garp doesn't talk about it. Garp doesn't talk about it.
What about Ace?
He literally said, no. The chapter literally says, Garp will reluctantly talk about it because he doesn't feel very proud about it, but he'll tell you about it.
Yeah, but how much of the truth? What details are omitted? You know, I think that Garp is smarter than he appears to be. I mean, he hit Ace from practically everyone. And so, you know, I just, you could be right, Artur. In fact, that's probably what the story wants us to believe. But there's room to wiggle if you want to. But that's,
I mean,
I don't think
also
it's
like with
impossible,
the way we view
surprised.
Luffy, right? Like Enies Lobby, they built him up like he's this evil pirate who's taken out in the government. And when you look at that same chapter,
but that's the government. That's the news.
Until you hear it from Rox himself, always be just a little bit skeptical, I think.
I know.
Here's
but like,
another
I don't
thing.
see. The point is like, sorry, I don't see why Oda would introduce this whole concept of the king of the world if he was just simply gonna make like, oh no, Rox actually wants to be like the king of charity or something.
No. He does want to be the king. But I think he wants to control it.
Right. Okay.
Like basically, perspective is individual to each person. So you see this a lot. Like oh, everybody's got struggles, you know, and you could have somebody who's just got it made, right? But they think that their struggles are equal to someone else. And so overall, I think that you can see a lot of people like Whitebeard, for instance, who's had a really bad upbringing. And I'm sure that there's more, but you know, it's like the world can't be any worse than it actually is under the celestial dragon's rule.
Kid said that, right?
Right.
Remember Kid said that?
Yeah, and so
but like to rule the world is kind of like a bit of a big deal. It's not exactly like, oh, I want to do.
I think it's also
so when it comes to someone like Rox, I imagine very ambitious. It's like somebody's got to do it. Probably Dragon is the same way. I think that there's probably a lot of similarities between Rox and Dragon.
They're like, we cannot be much worse than that the celestial dragons.
And the other part I think is like it's really important is like someone can have a dream and an aspiration, and then as a descendant or as like a follower, right? Like for example, Kaido's hearing the legends of Joyboy and he thinks that he's following it, but like him and Luffy are both like, if we're saying Luffy is Joyboy, they're both executing on being Joyboy, completely separate, right?
And if the theory is true about Kaido probably giving or Rox giving Kaido his name, that's a theory that's out there. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that. That could feed into it and build up Kaido the way he was back then, and even the way he is now.
Yeah, and so this whole King of the World thing, it's like maybe we don't know what his is, but like if we say is Blackbeard, is that his intention? Like he's probably doing it different than what Rox actually wanted to do.
I love this philosophy so much. It's like if you want to change the world, think about the real world. If you want to change the world, to what lengths would you go to?
Are you willing to go? Yeah, what are you willing to do?
Right, and so I think the answer in the story and how it's ultimately going to play out for Luffy is that it's going to be done with the least amount of casualties possible, probably. Right. But in the case,
Rox he didn't care.
But in order to save the world, how far would you go? How desperate would you become And that's just a fascinating philosophy. You know, you see that with, like, for instance, Avengers Endgame, you know, where he's like, overpopulation, you know, how do we solve this? You know, delete half the people. You know, it's evil, but there's like a reason behind it.
Great cleansing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think that, it is a really cool idea. I like it as a concept. And in fact, I was in another live stream, like, a few weeks ago where, like, someone presented the very same idea that, like, rocks did, like, evil things, but it was for a greater good. But it's just, like, it's still something that I don't really see by everything he's been characterized, how he's been associated with Blackbeard and everything. And
he's also been
associated
with Whitebeard,
evil.
He's also been associated with Whitebeard, though, and we know Whitebeard.
Yeah, but differently.
Yeah,
like, Whitebeard wanted to get away from rocks because he said, like, oh, in my old crew, the rocks, it was chaotic. You know, it's just like everyone wanted, like, to be a ruler, and, like, I don't like that.
Well, I think that's a very realistic thing, right? Where you know, for instance, think about, like, Nazi Germany. Okay?
Ambitious. Everybody's ambitious.
You know, you were in Germany, and all of a sudden Hitler takes control, and he says some things that you may believe in, right? And then you actually go. You see this right now with Ukraine and Russia. There's Russians that are going into Ukraine. They're fed some sort of dream, some sort of vision of some sort. We're going to go save the people there. And then many get there and they're like, wait, this wasn't what I thought it would be. And I feel like Whitebeard is under there. But at the same time, in order for that to first occur, you need to be convinced that somebody is fighting on the right side.
Yeah, and
you have to believe in the message. But also, I think there's some wiggle room there that Rox did do some scandalous things to have them work under him or work with him. But it is also implied that they were not the prototypical crew. Like, they came together time and again to do things, to pull off different heists, right? So they weren't sailing around the world together. It was just like, hey, I'm about to do this here. I need you guys to come with me. And then the Kaido thing, it kind of gave me a different perspective because the timeline, whereas when Kaido was 15 years old, so that means Rox was a thing, 6 or 7 years before God Valley, where Sengoku, how he positioned it was like, well, these are a collection of pirates that came together for one big score. You know what I mean? So it's just like, is he saying that all these pirates, that's when they were complete? God's Valley is when everybody were together, but we know Rox was a thing even when Kaido was 15 years old. You know, so there's a lot of nuance in Rox and how they came together, how long they've been together. But that's just like so the sources that we have, how much can we trust them? Because Sengoku, if we just go off of what he's saying, it seems like Rox came together just for God Valley.
Yeah, and
think
also,
about
that was a score.
Think about freedom as well. Like how personal freedom conflicts with perhaps Rox's vision or the crew itself's stability. You know, it's like we like to think of freedom as a good thing. But then what if you had a guy like Shiki, who's obviously a backstabber, you know, and so he's going around messing with other, you know, and you could see how someone like Whitebeard could be drawn into the idea of or Rox could unify people under an ideal and how it could all go to shit.
Especially based on where Whitebeard came from. He was on an island where like people are forgotten, right? And Rock's like, I can change that. I can get you the funds you need, right? All this different stuff. But then you have someone like Shiki who just wants to partner with people for power. He just wants strength. And then they also explain Shiki as someone that does not like peace for a long time. You know, so it's just like, you could see how those two personalities would conflict. That's when Shiki went to Whitebeard after Roger died. He's like, get the fuck around. He's like, I want nothing to do with you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
so, it's all about perspective.
Two things with the Rox part. One, I just want to read what Sengoku said. Okay, so he says, the ambition of their captain, Rox, was to be the king of the world. They opened hostilities directly against the world government like some kind of terrorist organization. The government itself covered up much of their deeds. When I read that to you, doesn't that sound like Luffy? That's what the Straw Hats did. They opened up direct hostilities against the world government, and that's how the people see him, as a terrorist organization. And then they also covered up their deeds. So like, there's that parallel there where it's like, you can take that out of context and that could be Luffy. And yeah, Luffy is evil to other people, but like, when you meet him, right, we're 10,043 chapters in, Luffy's not an evil dude. You know what I mean?
You know what's hilarious? If Luffy decides to go against the world government, right? Let's say like we go 1,000 years into the future, they're gonna be like, Luffy wanted to be the king of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Rox, and like Rox is actually Luffy's mom.
Not the craziest theory.
Mom. Run away.
Not the craziest.
Not today.
All right, before
and another just one thing with the
though.
world government thing, I just wanted to say this is like something that I keep on saying is that they always, they're even with the devil fruit, they're showing up that they want to manipulate and change the history. And something that really kind of like tingles me is the name God's Valley. Like God's Valley just sounds so forced. Whenever you think of gods, you think of mountains, you think of all these things, and for some reason God's Valley just sounds like that's a lie.
Well, celestial dragons, right?
Right, and
gods.
so like, but so God's Valley meaning the
God's
opposite.
Valley is somewhat like a contradiction. Right?
Yeah, so
not God, not wait, not God's Valley. It's God Valley.
Right.
So, but
Whatever,
God,
it doesn't matter.
whenever
It
you
doesn't matter.
associate God in like mythology, whatever,
God,
it's always
yeah.
mountains, always the top.
It's yeah.
But then
On
they're
top,
saying
right.
rocks did something evil at God. Like it's almost like they're forcing. They're saying like, oh, this is God's place or whatever, and they're associating like rocks did something there. But it's like a valley. So I keep on thinking, I'm like, that's just like who's gonna? It doesn't exist anymore. The world government can say whatever the hell they want about it. They can make all the shit up they want, and
it's a very unique name.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reversals like that. Like we know the heroes of the story are demons or devils. You know?
Heavenly demon.
So
The heavenly demon.
right. So it's
Yeah,
just
but
like the
like
god.
Doflamingo is like a parallel between like above and below. That's kind of his whole thing.
Oh, absolutely,
Like, all
absolutely.
that,
But I think that's what Parvision is kind of
because he was a celestial dragon who fell.
yeah,
and he
basically,
was the king of the underworld.
basically, if the
Exactly.
world government is naming things, you gotta question it. You gotta question it. And they're giving us reason to. They literally sat there and were like, yo, we renamed this devil fruit and we fucked up. Kind of like that.
But
You know
here's
what
the
I mean?
crazy part, though. The world government, right, and how they're approaching things, of course, they're fucked up. They have slaves and all this different stuff. But a lot of the things they're trying to do is trying to maintain a world that they feel is good for the most part, right? Of course, we have, like with Emu and the slaves, it's a lot of fucked up things going on. But for them, they're like, how can we maintain the balance of the world and keep the world functioning the way it is while we're in control? You know, it's like they're the government, they're the people in control of the world. How can we make this world function as best as possible? You know, where I think about with Luffy and after they save the world, we presume, what is the correct way to go about things then? Because I don't think piracy can continue to exist in a way, because Luffy, they're anomalies. That's not how most pirates are. So after Luffy and they help save the world, and we have the quote unquote good Marines, they take over with Kobe and Smoker, Fujitora, X Drake has kind of thrown his hat in the ring. What happens then, right? Like it has to still be outlawed, but these people help save the world.
I think also an important thing is
I love that thought.
the world government started out probably fine, because I think this is in the story somewhere that slavery was abolished until 200 years prior to our timeline, right? I think that's when it was reintroduced.
No. Slavery was finally abolished like 300 years before the current storyline. However, it does not apply to celestial dragons. The rules don't apply to them.
They don't care.
No, and it doesn't apply to other nobles and other people in general, even just normal people, because we see in Sabaody they break the law a lot.
Yeah.
It seems like that was probably the promise for the celestial dragons, for the kings that came up. It's like, hey, you can do whatever the hell you want.
So if anything, the situation has improved. Like even discrimination
technically it
against
has.
Technically, even discrimination
Yeah.
against fishermen isn't as bad, because now the Rigo Kingdom is considered
They're
an official
acknowledged.
kingdom
They're
200 years
acknowledged.
ago. But it's like,
But they're still
after the
like
Void
underwater.
Century, they're not able to get out because they can't do that. And like that kind of ties with the whole thing with like Joyboy's people, and like he made a promise to the fishmen to seemingly potentially emigrate them to the surface. He seemed to ally with a lot of people from different tribes, like the Minks.
And
the
something
government-
happens where he changed. He was like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, and
because
this conversation is
because the government happened, and the government just erased all that, eliminated Joyboy, his people, and everything. They had to survive through using the poneglyphs, and then they set this new system in stone.
Well,
They
I think
completely took out all that stuff.
that could have been a part of the moment where the prophecy happened, right? The moment where Joyboy had an intended
Yeah, no. I mean,
goal,
like we know
right?
for a fact that at the end of the Void Century, they hoped that someday someone could, turn the world upside down
Take
and
up the
bring the dawn
mantle,
of the world.
yeah.
And specifically,
Yeah.
actually, I think this is a really good point to motivate what I meant before. Toki specifically said, I fled from 800 years in the past because I was hoping that someone could turn the world upside down. But she didn't say like, oh yeah, there was this prophecy and I knew for a fact it was going to happen. It was just something that I hoped
she also said
someone
something
could do
else
it.
though. She implied that she ran away from her intended goal. You know what I mean?
No.
Like she implied that she was running away from something. Like
Yeah,
she
but
was
no. She was running away from the world government. She was running away. She said, I fled from the past, from the Void Century. because
No,
everything was just lost, because the world government was winning and they were literally had nothing else to do. So she fled to the day 800 years in the future where the ancient weapons would return and hopefully someone would appear to guide them to bring the dawn of the world.
It's a specific panel. I can't remember the exact panel, the exact chapter, but she talks about how even with her running away, she ended up exactly where she needed to be. You know, it's like she ran away from her destiny, but her destiny ended up being with Odin because she was absolutely necessary.
No, she did not mention. She did not mention destiny. She did not mention kind of like that she had to be with Odin. And specifically, she says actually that, you know, she wanted to jump into the future to see the day the world will be turned upside down, but she stayed in the present because that was where Odin was. And her love for Odin was more important than her seeing this come to fruition. Yeah.
It was more so implied, like, she definitely said that. It was implied to the point of, you know what, like, my goal was not this. This is not what I was trying to do, but I ended up exactly where I needed to be at the end of the day.
I mean, specifically, like the dialogue at the end of her like story says, Toki, you too have come in search of it from 800 years in the past. For the day the world is turned upside down, then leap 20 years ahead. That's where what you're wishing for is. But she says, like, no, I want to stay here with you. And later she says, Odin's son, I fled here from the past because I was thinking that if I leapt to the future, somebody would do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of tells with the idea, like, she was thinking that someone would be able to find, like, to, you know, like, bring the dawn of the world and turn the world upside down, as she put it. But that's specifically something that, like, the people of 800 years ago expected that someone could do 800 years in the future when the weapons would be reborn. But she fled there in the hopes that it would happen, and it wasn't exactly for certain.
But I think when I think of certainty, I think of, like, the poneglyphs. I think of, like, the time it would take for all this to be recorded, all this to be moved. These are things that were, like, these are things that set in stone.
No. That's specifically the poneglyphs. It was said that they were created before the end of. It was made during the war because the Great Kingdom started to realize that they were beginning to lose slowly, and they realized if the government wins, they're gonna erase everything about us. So as a backup plan, let's record everything. And let's put in these poneglyphs, and they did that through the Kolsky clan, and let's give it to other allies. So even if we get killed, those ideals survive within the poneglyphs. That's what Clover said, at least, about the Great Kingdom.
Yeah, it's like when we talk about fate and prophecy, it's a lot of it there it's murky. And the more we find out, I think is gonna reveal exactly, like I said, my speculation that someone like Madame Shirley was back then.
Yeah,
and it was a lot of things that was
another thing that you guys didn't talk about was the Gorosei, right? So, like, you say that the world is slightly better, maybe, or the Gorosei might be attempting to make the world better, outlawing slavery. It doesn't apply to everyone, but is that their intent? You know, it's very difficult to control people, and in some cases, I think the argument is that the system is more important than. The structural integrity of the system may be more important than some of the extraneous software. You know what I mean? And so, you know, it's like they want to manipulate the world and control it more, but they don't want to turn the celestial dragons into enemies because they're this symbol that sort of unifies the world. If they break, then the whole system breaks with them. And so anyway, with this in mind, it's like, you know, I like this mentality. It seems like it adds to the conversation of you know, you had pirates like Luffy, maybe pirates like Roger, who actually were allies with people like the Gorosei back in the day, and they had intentions on making the world a better place, but it just didn't manifest itself because the kingdoms perhaps that they allied with were corrupted over time.
Corrupt.
Power corrupts. You know,
power corrupts. So this could be a cycle like that could repeat itself. You know, even if the world is saved, like who knows, like based on who goes and who controls the world, then it could all happen again.
Right, exactly. And so that's why they know it's going to happen, you know, or it could be, you know, an underlying concept in all of it. You know, I see this in other stories as well, like the Wheel of Time, you know, it's like a loop.
Yeah, right, I think memories and time and history is definitely one of the things that Oda wants to emphasize. Like, he's emphasizing it now and later. And like, I even brought this up, like going back to this whole Joyboy thing. One of the things that I talked about in a reaction video was that Zunisha is like has a inspiration from Salvador Dali's Elephants painting. And so in that line of paintings there's the persistence of memories. So I don't know if you guys have probably seen it, you might not recognize the name, but it's
I've seen it in person, I think.
So it's the picture where clocks are like melting, and it's like there's like a tree and it's like hanging.
I have that,
so it's like
actually. Yep.
Yeah, so in this last panel, when I saw Luffy melting like the way he was, and the Joyboy name over it, I was like, is Joyboy gonna be some kind of reference to persistence of memory, where it's the like the like depending on how you, what was that?
I said, you're blowing my mind. Stop it.
Sorry. So the overall point being is like, if Zunisha and Joyboy, we know that they're companions, we know that they're connected. And the thing with Oda is that usually when he creates groups of characters like Shanks or like the Roger Pirates, like Gold Roger, Silver Rayleigh, Scopper Gaban, you know, there's a thematic to the names, there's thematic to the group, right? So if Zunisha's thematic was related to Salvador Dali, then Joyboy might have that too. And so that persistence of memory, depending on how you perceive it, right? Because art is, you know, up to the beholder. But like the concept that like time and memory, things aren't as permanent as you think. Our reality, we make things more permanent, like time, because that the clocks are melting. But what's really more permanent is your memory of things, and that ties back to the poneglyphs too. And so it's just like the whole, I forget, like it's just crazy how many references and connections there could be here. But like that's what I was thinking of when I was seeing this Joyboy melting thing, and that relates to, you know, even going back, like this isn't my theory, but the resin theory. One of the things that connects back to my theory is this concept of storage and history. And resin, when you think of resin, amber resin, that's how you preserve things. And so it's like there's a very interesting like context there where and this concept is very prominent for Oda, and I wouldn't be surprised if he it's yeah, if you like that, then my channel is a good place to go.
Got the plug.
Let me Parvision channel will definitely be in the description down below. Let me ask you guys, because we got to get out of here. I know Artur has been here a bit longer than he was gonna be, so I appreciate it. Just quickly, let me ask you guys, it's been an amazing conversation. Like literally certain moments that we were talking in this conversation, I was like getting chills because I felt like we're getting like so close to the answer, right? And it's like we're like one step away from like just one piece of information away from like what it actually is. But what are you guys' predictions for the next chapter?
Luffy's gonna awaken and go wild. Really, I don't think there's much more to it. Really,
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I
think we skip some time.
Yeah, I mean, oh god, no. I mean, I feel that Oda's usually fairly predictable when it comes to this type of chapter structure, because, you know, Luffy goes Gear 4th and then he transformed, he went Snake Man and he transformed. Oda could always break that. I'm not saying he couldn't, but he tends to kind of like pay off on this. And if like next chapter is literally like 20 pages of Hiyori talking with Orochi, I'm gonna just be very annoyed.
Or Momonosuke. I think that's my theory. Like we're gonna further. I don't think that Luffy can awaken and just go ham on the battlefield until we get Momonosuke.
It's a bit deeper.
Yes, yes.
But I think both of those may be like together. Like we may see like Momonosuke fighting alongside Luffy.
My general rule is that however fast I think it's gonna be a little bit slower.
I saw someone saying that what if we kind of get like the whole Momotaro thing and we get Momonosuke, Yamato as the dog, Luffy as the monkey, and either like Marco or sort of Hiyori maybe as the pheasant.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing in terms of like, to me, the way it feels like, I feel like there's going to be some kind of stall period in every fight in the past right before the last bout Luffy has. There's always been a 10-minute break. That's been constrained on Gear 4, but this time it might be for a different reason. We don't know what the reason is. And the other part of it is that it definitely feels like there's like, regardless of what the context of it is, there's gonna be some sort of flashback, whether it's from Luffy, whether it's from Kaido, whether it's from something. It feels like there's gonna be some kind of like lore, a little bit of a flashback type thing. And then in that stall period while Luffy's down, I think it's the time where we see adult Momo plus Yamato and Marco, and then we get a mythical Zoan fight with like Dragon versus all of like the rest of them, waiting for Luffy essentially. And the reason why it's like, originally I was was thinking like Momo's gonna have to fight Kaido, and Kaido's right now like, hey yo, where's Momo at? I'm trying to fight. I'm trying to throw hands. And then Momo's just like, I'm not trying to fight, but Yamato's there. So then it's Yamato and Marco we see kind of like, you know, instigating a confrontation with Kaido. Marco's the only person saying like, don't give up. Yamato's saying the same thing, and Momo's the center point for both of them. And it makes sense to me that Yamato and Marco are the people, because they're the two people who are the closest tied to Odin on the battlefield, I'm pretty sure. So it would make sense that they would be the ones that essentially hold Momo's hand in this fight, where he doesn't have to beat Kaido, he just has to hold off until Luffy's back. And that's kind of the way I see it. And in terms of predictions, I think the only hard set prediction that I have that I can say concrete is I'm pretty sure Zunisha is going to be the one to put out the fire on Onigashima. He's just going to take up all the water and spray it down.
I thought the same.
So that was my cop out in terms of predictions, but like
a little cop out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just it's a stall tactic. I would love it if we get, you know, the Momonosuke, all those guys trying to still hold off Kaido. Then at the end, we get an amazing Luffy, or Kaido senses Luffy is back. You know,
but Luffy already is back technically, right? He was already smiling. He's awakening. So I think like
maybe
how long can you even stall that?
Whose spirit was that? Was that Joyboy's spirit? Or was that Luffy's spirit? You know, it's
yeah.
like,
Wait, you think that's Joyboy's spirit?
I mean, it could be. I'm not saying that it is. But
oh my god!
If it's Joyboy's spirit,
Zunisha knows that.
So I think like Joyboy is like alive within Luffy, like
could be
like a god that has been like
there's
still
some
inside
sort,
his heart.
Or there's some sort of unique aura about him. I mean, Zunisha hears the drums of liberation. What is that? I kind of like, you know, so when Luffy and Zoro encounter Blackbeard, they know that Blackbeard, that it's not, you know, it's not one person, it may be multiple. I don't remember the exact wording, you know, but you can at least sense another person's presence, and there's something distinct about it. You talk about a voice, you know, is it like literally their voice, or is it like something artistic? You know, like there's a particular way that someone's spirit manifests that people with observation hockey can sense, you know, and so it became like smells, right? Where dogs can smell each other, you know, based on the slight variations. But that's kind of
like you mean like it's kind of Luffy, but like he's a reincarnated Joyboy from the past, so like they sense kind of the same kind of like personality traits within him.
No, not even.
Do you think like Luffy has? Do you think like Luffy has like a split personality? Like Blackbeard has like a god still inside his heart.
Well, it goes back to his devil fruit. You know, it's like an interesting example that I was given recently is back in Skypiea. When Luffy went inside the snake Nola, right? Enel couldn't sense his presence. You know, the greater snake was hiding Luffy's ability to be sensed. Well, think about that in terms of devil fruits. You know, like Luffy was perhaps, or any devil fruit user is hiding the presence of the devil within them, where you can't sense it. So then Luffy has this moment where he may have momentarily died or went unconscious. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, in this moment, Zunisha could sense it. You know, it's like the other, you know, but this is all out there. But this is where my mind goes.
Yeah, no, it is.
If Joyboy takes over Luffy, my theory is that if that's the way it goes, Luffy will have a double layered eye, like Hakuba when Hakuba takes over Cavendish, or like Eam. We don't know where those eyes are, but I have a theory that relates to like some kind of possession thing. So if that is the case, then Luffy will have double layered eyes, in my opinion. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay.
It's such a abstract idea, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, that's why we're over here freaking out, and you're like, nah, it's just simple, you know.
No, yeah, but like, I mean, I really don't see kind of, for example, for someone like Blackbeard, yeah, we have like this kind of like established thing that he lives twice longer than people, or he may have like multiple personality or something. That's kind of like a specific trait to him. With Luffy, we haven't really seen that, or with devil fruit users in general. So it's kind of like, I think it'd be a bit weird if it's just like,
well, Blackbeard can
snap. It's like hey YouTube, Joyboy here.
Well, something with Luffy actually with this, we do see that with Gear 4 in Boundman. He has this quirk where when he's fighting Katakuri, he just says whatever's on his mind, and Katakuri's like, "What are you saying?" And then we've never seen Luffy say this, but he's just like, I have to say whatever's on my mind.
No, that's in relation to Katakuri though, because he says like, "Oh, Katakuri, you've always been so restricted with everything you want to say. So like, here I am, like saying what I really feel like, saying that I'm feeling pain and I'm feeling weak. You should be more like this." That's like something tied to Katakuri's character than Gear 4 specific.
But like what the other side to that is that we also see that in Snake Man, Luffy's commanding his Python. He's just like, go after him, Python. He said that multiple times, and that's a very interesting thing
it's
too.
It's attack. It's like Gomu Gomu no pistol. Like, of course.
But when has he ever said, like, he's talking to Python? He says after him, Python. Like he's talking. Yeah, he's talking to it as it's like it's different. We've never seen
Joyboy
Luffy.
his fist.
Well, I don't know what it is. It's just an interesting thing, right? Like
this is illuminating.
Like when you think about it,
right.
Like, because when you think about it, Zoro is talking to Enma, right? Zoro's talking to a sword, a literal sword. So I don't know how other things manifest.
As well. That's
right?
confirmed. You know, it's got a presence to it.
And so
Sword
who's
is
to say
Ryuma.
devil fruits, whatever, like it's just an interesting reason for, like, Luffy has, when he elevates to Gear 4 and the different forms, he does have different quirks for each of them.
Right.
For Snake Man.
Well, this
and
also
Bound
ties
Man.
into this also ties into as well. I don't mean to continue the conversation on forever, but you were talking earlier about beaver cards, or we're talking about poneglyphs, where maybe you can apply a will to a thing to make it indestructible.
Exactly.
You know, but it comes from somewhere, so it actually has a presence to it. You know. But anyway, we should really.
I'm not sure. We're about to wrap it up. This makes me think of Young Justice. Not sure if you guys ever seen that.
Oh, I liked it.
Wally, he he doesn't believe in like magic and shit. So he's just always like, oh man, everything it can be explained with science. So like things rarely like blow him away, and he's like, it doesn't matter what happens. He's just like, oh, it's science. It's just like this can be explained. Artur is like, nah, that's just this.
I mean, like, I think that, like, so whatever concepts Oda introduced need to, like, work within the rules that he has established about One Piece. And if he wants to change something, then he usually always establishes certain rules about it beforehand, or kind of, like, set some of these things up. It's like, here there's nothing to me indicating that, like Luffy has like a second, like if Luffy had a personality inside him all this time, I feel we would have seen it more than just like, oh, this line he said towards a character kind of sounds like something.
Well, that's where Awakening becomes interesting, maybe, you know, where it's different now. So yeah, so the game has changed potentially.
I think that's part of the reason why, Artur, that so many people are excited, because of the possibilities, right? Because
yeah, but it's more the possibilities rather than what really is happening at the moment. And like for me, it's like
absolutely.
I mean, the same way, like, in the possibilities that maybe, like, Luffy has, like, 3 fruits or, you know, whatever ideas, but, like, I feel like we first need to see concepts established within the story in order to pay them off and properly build up on them, rather than just kind of just jumping at whatever conclusion.
Well, the big thing is that you can't come to conclusions about Joyboy, you know? Yeah. If you're going based on what's actually given, we know Joyboy is here, but, like, in what sense, right? And no matter what sense it is, it's going to be some form of magic that, you know, it's at Oda's whim.
And I would argue that
it's not necessarily going to be magic, though.
I would argue that it has been introduced, I think that, like with voice of all things. I think it makes more sense
for it to not be a magic abstract concept, but something that exists within the rules of One Piece. Because Oda tries to stay away from
reincarnation is seen as a kind of magic depending on where you're from. You know, and I'm not trying to say that, but you know,
maybe it's not reincarnation. Like I really just think Zunisha acknowledges that Luffy is the Joyboy for having that fruit, and that doesn't even mean that Luffy is the original Joyboy. He's just the new Joyboy, because we know Joyboy is a title.
So by awakening the fruit, then you know who the Joyboy is.
Could be, or maybe it's just something different. Maybe it's just Luffy's personality sense.
But how's she able to sense it like that? And why would it be different now? You know, there's a lot of questions.
I mean, I think it. Yeah, exactly. The point is, like, I'm not like against crack theories. It's like I'm not like a scientist who only believes in the truth, but like I do find them fun. I do find them interesting. But when I want to believe in something like firmly, I want to kind of go with like the evidence and like the ideas, the core ideas that have been established in the story. And that's kind of sort of how like I felt about this thing. So I don't want to sound like I'm being like extremely cynical or anything.
Yeah,
but
party
like,
pooper. I need to see not invited in the future.
No, Artur, I think your perspective is one that I definitely welcome. And I specifically wanted to talk to you guys about it. It makes for an interesting conversation. So, yeah, we reached the end. I went almost an hour longer than I expected it to, but just an amazing chapter. I really can't wait for the next chapter, man. This is one that I'm sure myself and a lot of people are excited for. So, Parvision, channel will be in the description down below. Joyboy, Artur, the Library of Ohara. Do you guys have any last words?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me here. You know, this conversation was so enjoyable. That's why it went an hour longer than we intended, right? Like,
it's a great time.
Yeah. And Artur, like your perspective, like we need that, you know, everything needs balance, you know? So
Absolutely.
Definitely welcomed. Yeah.
Balance, equilibrium, man. We would talk about it. So yeah, guys, thank you again. If you watched the video, make sure you like, subscribe, all that stuff. Everybody's channels will be in the description box down below. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
I start doubting me, I felt lost.